What is up, bros and broettes? I am Inkslasher, and welcome back to Evolution, the series where we look at the history of Call of Duty. Last week we looked at the history of Create a Class, and I asked you guys what you wanted to see in the next video, and a ton of you asked to see what is the evolution of the red dot sight. Now, the red dot sight has been a staple in Call of Duty for a very long time, but we're going to take this a step further and actually not just look at the evolution of the red dot sight, but also red dot sight variants. This may include a tracker sight or maybe even a boa sight, but we're going to include those in this. What we're not going to include is anything to do with an ACOG, thermal, or anything along those lines. Basically, we're going to be looking at all of the sights that don't scope in or magnify your view by any large extent. Now, before we get into the evolution of the red dot sight, I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of the recent support on the channel. All the likes you've been leaving on the video has been super greatly appreciated. And as always, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below what you want to see the evolution of. It can be a game mode, it can be a particular attachment, or a weapon. Feel free to let me know down in the comments. So the origin of the red dot sight began in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and one thing you may notice about the Evolution series, a lot of stuff started in this game, but once again, the origin of the red dot sight is Call of Duty 4. In Modern Warfare, you could use the red dot sight on most weapons in the game: assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, and finally LMGs. The weapons it couldn't be used on were sniper rifles, pistols, and finally, the MP44. It was the only assault rifle in the game that you couldn't use a red dot sight on. Why? I don't really know, but what I will say is the MP44 actually had no attachments whatsoever that you could put on it. This may be because the MP44 wasn't really a modern weapon, and the name of the game was Modern Warfare, so it was just kind of like an add-on possibly, but overall, I really have no idea. So the question of this is, why was Modern Warfare the first game red dot sights were added into, and what was the purpose they serve? Well, the first reason of that is red dot sights are more of a modern attachment, and most of the older Call of Duty games were from World War II. Simply being stated, red dot sights didn't exist in World War II. So when Call of Duty was brought to the modern era, all of a sudden they could add this attachment in. On top of that, the idea of a red dot sight was supposed to replace any iron sights that you didn't feel comfortable with. With this Modern Warfare Remastered gameplay you're looking at here, I don't like the iron sights on the M16, so most of the time I use a red dot sight. On top of that, it makes me a little bit more accurate because the area I have to aim at is a little bit smaller. It's a dot instead of the full iron sights. Finally, some myths about the red dot sight. There's two. One, it makes you aim down sights faster. That's 100% not true, and as you'll see throughout this entire video, it's never been true. The second is that it actually scopes you in. It limits your field of view and makes it so you kind of have a scope that zooms. Once again, this is not true. A red dot sight does not limit your field of view any more than normally aiming down sights. We will find that there are certain sights that do that, but not in this game. And then came out Call of Duty World at War, and as I previously mentioned, during World War II there was no such thing as a red dot sight. So Treyarch had a problem. They somehow had to find a way to bring a red dot sight into the game without them actually existing during World War II. So what did? They completely made something up. The aperture sight is in Call of Duty World at War, and believe it or not, this never existed in history. Even to this day, there is no such thing as an aperture sight. Also in Call of Duty World at War, there wasn't too many weapons you could actually use the aperture sight on. You could use it on all of the SMGs and all of the assault rifles except for one. The one assault rifle you couldn't use it on was the M1 Grand. The attachment that existed on the M1 Grand was actually a sniper scope. Also, the aperture sight wasn't unlocked in World at War until you got 75 kills with that weapon. Then you got the aperture sight. Then when we were back in Modern Warfare 2 in the modern era, once again Infinity Ward changed the red dot sight just a little bit. The primary weapons in Modern Warfare 2 that you could use a red dot sight on were assault rifles, submachine guns, and light machine guns. On top of that, in Modern Warfare 2 they also added machine pistols and shotguns as secondary weapons, and both of which you were able to use red dot sights on. Also in this game they added in a new type of red dot sight called the holographic sight. It was unlocked for primary weapons by getting 60 kills while aiming down sights with a red dot sight. For machine pistols you had to get 100 kills, and for shotguns you had to get 250 kills. Once you unlocked the red dot sight, it was basically the same as a red dot sight. There was no tricks to it. You didn't aim down sights faster, it didn't limit your field of view. What it did do is take up a little bit more space on screen than a normal red dot sight. Overall, there wasn't too much difference between the two. And back in Modern Warfare 2, there was actually another variant of a red dot sight called a Mars sight. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but on two weapons, your red dot sight would look different. The TAR-21 and the F-2000. This is what the red dot sight looked like on those weapons. Basically, it just took up more space on the screen. Now, the holographic looked completely normal on these two weapons. It was just the red dot sight that actually looked different. In Black Ops 1, you could use the red dot sight on assault rifles, SMGs, and LMGs. However, in Black Ops 1, they changed the look of the red dot sight. In this game, it was a little bit more rounded. However, they kept the traditional red dot sight on a couple of weapons, on the AK-47, AK-74U, and RPK. This type of red dot sight was called the Russian Cobra red dot sight and looked like the more traditional red dot sight. On top of that, in Black Ops 1, they also added a new type of red dot sight called the Reflex Sight. This sight was more like the holographic sight from Modern Warfare 2 mixed with the ACOG sight. Another interesting thing about this game is there was no challenges to actually unlock the attachments themselves. The attachments were purchased with COD points in this game and could be unlocked at any time you please. Another thing that's important to mention is that in Black Ops 1, it was the first Call of Duty game to have reticle variants. So for example, I could make my reticle look like a smiley face that was also blue. Modern Warfare 3 probably had the most drastic change to the red dot sight in any Call of Duty game, because in Modern Warfare 3, the red dot sight actually did something, and we'll talk about that in a second. In Modern Warfare 3, you could use the red dot sight on assault rifles, submachine guns, light machine guns, shotguns, and finally, machine pistols. And in Modern Warfare 3, there was a new thing called weapon proficiencies, and basically that was just leveling up weapons. So for assault rifles, submachine guns, and light machine guns, the red dot sight was unlocked at level 2. For shotguns, it was unlocked at level 12, and finally for machine pistols, it was unlocked at level 7. Now, what did the red dot sight do in this game? It actually zoomed. So the red dot sight zoomed by 1.35 times. So it was very minimal, but it was definitely noticeable. And basically what it did was limit your field of view, so you zoomed in just a little bit. Similarly, the holographic sight in this game also zoomed, but it zoomed a little bit further than the red dot sight. It zoomed 1.5 times, so it would limit that field of view just a little bit more. Now, this weapon was unlocked at level 8 for machine pistols, level 17 for assault rifles and shotguns, level 19 for SMGs, and level 22 for LMGs. It was different for almost every single weapon. And finally, we have the new optic attachment added in Modern Warfare 3. This one is called the Hammer Scope, and it was only available on SMGs. You unlocked it at level 22 weapon proficiency, and basically, it was an ACOG scope attached to a red dot sight. So the red dot sight once again had 1.35 times zoom, but the other part had a 2.4 times zoom and was more similar to something like the ACOG. The thing I didn't understand about this attachment is that it was only on SMGs, and very rarely did anyone use an ACOG on SMGs, so I didn't really understand the point of this attachment. So then came along Black Ops 2, and Black Ops 2 kind of went nuts when it comes to optic attachments. We have 5 to talk about that are similar to the red dot, and this isn't including the ones that are very similar to the ACOG scopes. So as far as the red dot sights we go, there is no actual red dot sight in Black Ops 2. This one is just called a reflex. But on top of that, we have a hybrid optic, millimeter scanner, target finder, and finally the EO tech. So the red dot in Black Ops 2 was called the Reflex Sight, and it was available at level 2 for SMGs, assault rifles, handguns, shotguns, and finally the crossbow, and was also available for LMGs at level 5. Now, there really wasn't anything fancy about this sight. It was just basically a red dot sight that in this game was called the Reflex Sight. The next optic attachment was the target finder, which was available on assault rifles, SMGs, and of course LMGs, which people really hated in this game. Basically what this attachment does is highlights your enemies on the screen with a giant red box around them, almost giving you wall hacks. Similarly, an optic attachment that does actually give you wall hacks is the millimeter scanner. This is available on shotguns, SMGs, and assault rifles, and basically what this did is every 2 to 3 seconds send out a pulse, and if there was an enemy hiding behind a target up to 25 meters away, they'd be highlighted on your optic. The next one we had is called the EO tech. This is essentially the holographic sight that we've seen before in Call of Duty games. The difference with this one though is that the EO tech would actually reduce your recoil by 1% by giving you a 1% faster center speed. And finally, we have the hybrid optic. This is actually the only Call of Duty game with the hybrid optic, but basically what it is a copy of the hammer scope that we saw in Modern Warfare 3. You have your reflex scope and you have your ACOG. Now, the difference with this one is you actually switch weapons by pressing the sprint button while aiming down sights, and it also switches very, very quickly. By far, Black Ops 2 had the most amount of optic attachment that we've ever seen in Call of Duty, at least up until this point. In Call of Duty Ghosts, there were 4 attachments that were similar to the red dot sight, the first of which was, of course, the actual red dot sight. In Call of Duty Ghosts, you would unlock attachments via squad points, which were basically randomly throughout a game you would get a squad point, and then you could spend them on attachments, guns, or other things. For example, the red dot sight cost 3 squad points to unlock, and once you had a weapon unlocked, you could unlock any attachment at any time. Levels really didn't matter. The next attachment we have is the holographic sight, and this is just pretty much your common holographic sight. It would take 4 squad points to unlock, but the interesting thing about the holographic sight in this game is if you look down in the bottom left hand corner, you'll see a bar that goes from 0 to 100. What this is the percentage of damage this weapon will do at the target you are shooting at. So therefore, if the target is right up close to you, it will deal 100%. If the target's far away from you, it may show 25 or 50%. This is something, at least to my knowledge, is only in Call of Duty Ghost on that holographic sight. After that, we have the VMR sight. Now, this is an interesting one because this one I actually found kind of useful. So the VMR was 2 sights. You had your normal red dot sight and a 2.9 times magnification sight. This was switched while aiming down sight, so you'd press R3 and then it would switch between the two. And finally, we have the tracker sight. Now, the tracker sight actually costs 6 squad points to unlock, but it's a very interesting attachment. First of all, while aiming down sights, the tracker sight would kind of highlight your enemy and track them even sometimes when you're not aiming down sights. On top of that, you can press R3 while using this and aiming down sights, and it'll actually switch to an iron sight. Call of Duty Ghosts is actually the only game to include this, but since then we've seen similar kind of ideas in other Call of Duty games. Then came Advanced Warfare, and in Advanced Warfare the red dot was something we'd never seen before. It wasn't rounded or box shaped. What it was a very open concept. It had a very thin border with an open top, kind of similar to the ELO sight that we're going to look at in Black Ops 3. Also in Advanced Warfare, there was no such thing as a holographic sight, but what we had instead was something called a hybrid sight. A sight where we could choose between a regular old red dot sight or the hybrid sight, which was a 4 times magnifier. Another new optic attachment was the autofocus sight, and in fact, Advanced Warfare is the only game with this sight. And basically what it is a red dot sight, but if you stand still, the autofocus sight zooms in, kind of like the hybrid sight, but it does it automatically instead of you manually doing it. And finally, we have the target enhancer, and basically what this is when you see a target through this optic attachment, they turn red. However, if they go behind cover, they disappear, they don't stay red. So it's kind of similar to the MMS we saw in Black Ops 2, or the tracker sight that we saw in Call of Duty Ghosts. Once again in Black Ops 3 we have no red dot sight, we have what's called the Reflex Sight. Of course it acts the exact same as a red dot sight, but once again they just changed the name. Now, new to Black Ops 3, we also have something called an ELO sight. Now, this is basically a red dot sight without the frame around it. You have the exact same field of view as a red dot sight, but this time you just have the outside of the red dot sight removed. Now, one interesting thing about Black Ops 3 is you can actually use the ELO on a sniper rifle, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first Call of Duty game where you can use a red dot sight on a sniper rifle. But like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. And finally, we got the BOA 3, and this one's special because it does 2 things. First of all, it limits your field of view from 50 on a normal red dot sight to 45, so you zoom in just a little bit. And also, it increases your center speed by 10%, which means you have 10% less recoil. This is one of the very few types of red dot sights ever in Call of Duty to actually reduce your recoil by that much. And then we got Infinite Warfare, and there is quite a lot of optic attachments in Infinite Warfare, but once again, Infinite Warfare decided to go with the name of Reflex Sight instead of Red Dot Sight, but once again, essentially, it's the exact same thing. And once again, in this game, the attachments you use are based off of your weapon level, so as you level your weapon up, the more attachments you unlock. But the next one we got here is the Trojan, and the Trojan is basically the target enhancer that we saw before, but in this game, your targets are highlighted in green instead of red. Another attachment that we've seen to a similar attachment before in this game is called the VMC. Before it was called the VMR, and this one is basically just a variable zoom. You can decide whether you want to have just a regular red dot sight or a 4 times the zoom red dot sight. Another one that they took from Black Ops 3 is the ELO, and once again, the ELO is exactly the same as it was in Black Ops 3, a red dot sight without the limitations of the border of the red dot sight. And finally, to end things off, I didn't know whether I should include this one or not, but it's something called a smart shot. Now, this is for shotguns, and basically what this does is when you aim down sights, it takes a second, but all of your pellets go to one spot on the enemy. Basically, it's aim assist for a shotgun that they implemented in Infinite Warfare. But guys, that is it. That is the evolution of the red dot sight. If you guys enjoyed the video, it would be very, very greatly appreciated if you could hit that like button. These videos take a really long time to make, so if you guys could hit that like button, it really would help out the channel and show me that you want to see more episodes of these. Also, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below what you think is going to happen with Call of Duty World War II. Are they going to implement a red dot sight? Is it going to be the aperture sight again? Or are they just going to leave it out and just put iron sights in? I wonder what you think. Also, let me know what you want to see in future episodes of the Evolution series. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.